Obviously, these kinds of conversations by leading figures in the White House are problematic, and that is compounded by the fact that we know that American government officials have been meeting with proponents of separatism in the province of Alberta, and even discussions of $500 billion credit to the separatists have been discussed.
Now, the United States Treasury Secretary, Scott Bessent, has jumped into the rift between the United States and Canada. Seems to be backing a separatist movement in the western province of Alberta in Canada. Now, if the campaign succeeds, it could lead to Albertans voting to break away from the rest of that country. Thomas Lukaszuk is the former Deputy Premier of Alberta, who has launched the opposition petition Forever Canadian in a response to this talk of separatism. Welcome to you, Thomas.
Good afternoon. Thank you for having me.
You're very, very welcome. So now we see the Trump administration apparently supporting an Alberta independence referendum, the Treasury Secretary calling Alberta a natural partner to America. What are your thoughts on all of this?
Well, it goes a little further than that, because yesterday, the son of the President of the United States, Barron Trump, has put out a social media statement outlining that, in his opinion, this is a two-step process. The first step being gaining independence for the province of Alberta from Canada, and then the next natural step would be becoming the 51st state of the United States. So, obviously, these kinds of conversations by leading figures in the White House are problematic, and that is compounded by the fact that we know that American government officials have been meeting with proponents of separatism in the province of Alberta, and even discussions of $500 billion credit to the separatists have been discussed. So this is unusual. As you know, Canada enjoys a long history of friendship with the United States that probably is uncomparable to other two nations.
Yes.
And to have these kinds of dialogues and these kind of overt statements from representatives of the United States are simply unbecoming and troublesome.
Right. To call it troublesome and unbecoming, a fairly mild expression. So what does it mean for the relationship between Canada and its nearest, biggest, richer neighbour to the south?
Well, it definitely creates skepticism. And as you know, our Prime Minister Carney has made his feelings clear at Davos. And even though, much like in UK, in Canada, we have political divisions, but when it comes to leadership and our position vis-a-vis United States, by far most Canadians echo the sentiments expressed by Prime Minister Carney in Davos. We are hoping that we can restore the good relations that we have always enjoyed with the United States. But at this point in time, we are focusing on the future of Canada that may not include United States.
Right. I mean, it doesn't take a huge amount of research, Thomas, to see that Alberta is rich in natural resources, especially oil, what's called tar oil, which is in the sand of parts of that territory. Is that what this is really all about?
It's about more than that. Oil and gas, yes, those are obviously of interest to the United States. Their recent journey into Venezuela is indicative of that. But Alberta has other resources, rare earth resources, but also fresh drinking water, which is becoming one of the most important resources. Plus, unfettered access to Alberta would also grant the United States access to the Arctic and to Alaska. It's very difficult to rationalize the logic behind these statements from Washington officials. Most of the oil that is being extracted right now in Alberta is actually extracted by American companies. So American companies are welcome to invest in Alberta and share in the profit making, much like Greenland has been offering American companies to enter into contractual agreements. The statements that we're hearing from Washington are more political than economic in nature. There are much more expressing their desire to hold a political control over Western Canada.
I wonder what you made of President Trump's posting over the weekend on social media, threatening Canada with 100% trade tariffs if Canada went ahead with a trade deal with China. Now, the problem there is no trade deal with China on the table.
No, there are discussions, and as a matter of fact, last week President Trump commented by saying that if Canada could reach a deal with China, we should. So this is a 180 degrees turnaround. But I think by now we have all learned that we should not be responding to President Trump's comments, because his opinion shifts daily.
Yes.
And that is the position that we are taking right now.
It's quite difficult, though, Thomas, not to respond to some of the statements the president makes. Last week, end of last week, there was the president, diminishing the role of NATO allies in the conflict in Afghanistan. He walked back to an extent where Britain was concerned, but Canada lost, 159 troops in Afghanistan, and there was no mention of Canada.
That is correct. And that is why further perpetuating those comments and giving them oxygen probably is not the appropriate way of dealing with President Trump. He seems to be thriving in the fact that he can stir up discontent or turmoil in the geopolitical sphere. I would suggest to you that actually ignoring those comments is a better way to deal with those issues, or taking Prime Minister Carney's approach and simply standing up to them and developing our own national interests and pursuing our own national goals.
Okay.
Vis-a-vis alliances with UK and European Union.
All right, thanks for sharing your thoughts, Thomas. Thomas Lukaszuk there, the former Deputy Premier of Alberta.